Let's talk about something I see all of the time, especially among women who are already doing a lot for their health. They're active. They walk every day, they do yoga or Pilates multiple times a week. Maybe they even throw in a spin class here or there. They're checking every box of what we've been told is healthy, but still feel stuck. They're not seeing the body composition changes they want, or they're worried about bone density and muscle loss as they get older. And the question is, I'm already working out 5 or 6 days a week. How is that not enough? That's exactly what we're diving into today. Because if you've been relying on yoga, Pilates, or walking as your main forms of exercise, you might be missing the key stimulus your body actually needs, especially for bone and muscle preservation as you age.
Before we talk about what does work, we have to understand what these modalities actually do and where they fall short, because this connects directly to last week's episode about the weighted vest. Let's start with walking. What is walking truly good for? It is great for your cardiovascular health. It's great for your daily movement and your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, also known as NEAT, your stress management and mental clarity, your digestion and glucose regulation, a low barrier to entry that is sustainable and something that you can enjoy. It's also great for social activities and just getting your butt outside and touching some freaking grass. It's fantastic for your general health, your mental clarity, and your overall longevity. It's an incredible foundation, but it's certainly not enough for muscle or bone preservation. So let's take a look at what that walking doesn't do. For the muscle, walking is a low-intensity, repetitive movement. So your muscles will adapt within just a few weeks of continuing to perform walking. And then as you continue that, you're going to maintain that very minimal stimulus. So there's no progressive overload and very little challenge that's in place. So you can walk 10,000 steps a day for years and not build a single bit of muscle.
For your bone health, your bones need mechanical stress, so real loading to grow stronger. So what we can look at here is the ground reaction force. So walking provides approximately 1 to 1.2 times body weight and ground reaction force. Running provides 2 to 3 times body weight. Jumping provides 4 to 5 times body weight. And heavy resistance training can create even higher forces. So what the reality of this really means for you is that research confirms that walking alone does not prevent age-related muscle or bone loss. It's great maintenance, but it's not the same as training. So the trap that we see high-performing women fall into is thinking that volume equals intensity. It doesn't. You can walk every day and still lose strength, bone density, and muscle mass year over year.
Now let's take a look at yoga. Yoga is good for a handful of things, improving your flexibility and your mobility when you're practicing it properly. Because let's get real, there are some people out there who are not doing it properly that those things are not improving. It can be a stress reduction and help with regulating your nervous system. This is a huge win, but again, this can be taken out of context when you go into a hot yoga session and have your heart rate at 150 beats per minute, or higher because you're trying to keep up with the pace. That is not stress reducing. It can help with your mind to body connection. It helps with your balance, your coordination, and your proprioception. It gives you community. It allows for you to enjoy time with others, and it certainly is sustainable. So I'm not sitting here being anti-yoga by any stretch of the imagination. I have a lot of clients who do yoga. I enjoy yoga. Sue enjoys yoga. And we just want to be very clear about it, what it does and does not provide for you.
So when we look at what it doesn't provide sufficient mechanical load. So most yoga poses use body weight in positions that don't maximize muscle tension. Holding downward dog or warrior pose doesn't create the same stimulus as a loaded squat or deadlift. It also doesn't have progressive overload. You're repeating similar poses indefinitely. Maybe your form improves or you hold them longer, but you're not systematically increasing resistance over time. It does not include bone-building stimulus, so holding static poses, even difficult ones, doesn't create the dynamic high-force loading that bones need to be able to adapt. The forces generated in yoga poses are simply too low. And it also doesn't provide adequate muscle protein synthesis stimulus. So yoga can make you feel strong, but feeling strong or feeling hard isn't the same as creating a hypertrophy response. So this is the biggest misunderstanding that we see, is that something can feel hard without being effective for your goals. So yoga does challenge your balance, your control, your endurance, but not actually the muscle tension required for real adaptation. So, like Alex said, him and I do yoga. We have many clients who do yoga. So, when does yoga make sense? It makes sense as a supplement to resistance training. Absolutely. So, for mobility, recovery, stress management, movement quality, yoga is fantastic, but not as your primary or only strength modality.
It's crazy to even call it a strength modality.
I
I don't
know.
think that you can say that. So let's wrap this up with looking at the Pilates and what Pilates is good for. Pilates is great for core stability and core control. It's great for improving your mind to muscle connection, helping with your postural awareness, rehabilitation for certain injuries. It's a low impact movement option, and it is also great for movement precision and quality. As we look at all three of these within walking, yoga, and Pilates, it's the closest to a strength category, but it certainly still falls short in a lot of critical areas.
So again, when we look at what Pilates doesn't provide adequately, it does not provide that sufficient load for muscle hypertrophy. So even reformer Pilates doesn't reach the levels of resistance necessary for significant muscle growth. It also doesn't have that progressive overload structure. So you're improving movement skill, not increasing muscular challenge week over week. It doesn't have that bone loading stimulus. So that controlled smooth movements don't create enough impact or compressive force for bone adaptation. So bones respond to that dynamic high force loading that I've mentioned, not slow controlled movements. It also doesn't provide that full body strength development. So Pilates emphasizes core strength, which is valuable, but it often neglects heavy lower body loading. It does a lot of body weight and it has some resistance in there, but it's not going to be the same as squats or deadlifts or lunges under load. And upper body pressing and pulling strength that resistance training often provides. And that toned but strong phenomenon. So Pilates can improve muscle control, create better posture, and even create some visible muscle definition that you might feel like you looked more toned. But it's something that while you might look more toned, you still can be losing muscle year after year. You feel strong, but metabolically, you're not protecting your body the way that you think you are. So when we're looking at muscle size and strength, those are the things that preserve your metabolic rate, prevent age-related muscle loss, and maintain bone density. And those require heavier loads and progressive overload over time. Now, that is something when it comes to marketing of Pilates studios often market as strength or sculpting or lean muscle building. And that's something that a lot of high-performing women assume they're getting this comprehensive strength training, but the stimulus isn't sufficient for the adaptations that they're seeking. And this isn't necessarily Pilates' fault. It's just a mismatch between what's being promised and what the modality actually delivers. So Pilates, again, does make sense just like walking and yoga, but it is going to be supplementary. So it's going to be supplementary for core control and stability, rehab, movement quality. Those are going to be great, but not as your primary resistance training. So the reason that we're talking about this is not to demonize any of these. If you are getting out and moving, that is incredible. I love that you're walking. I love that you're prioritizing your health. But what we really want to talk about and give you knowledge is being able to understand why you're doing each thing that you're doing. Because if you're in a place that you're doing all three of those forms of movement and still not getting the physique that you want to get, that's where we're trying to be able to bridge the gap when it comes to knowledge. Because the limitation of all three of these is that they all have a low mechanical load. And so again, you're working hard, but your body doesn't have a reason to adapt. So that's also something that, let's say you're spending 8 hours a week across these modalities. If we're able to spend 3 or 4 of those hours within resistance training, you're going to see more measurable change in muscle, bone, and metabolism without spending more time. So that's going to be something that we want to dive into of how you can spread that out and really being able to get across that volume does not equal intensity. And so it's something that we really want to look at what is going to have the appropriate stimulus for us. I also think it's just important to talk about just the societal or cultural factors when it comes to these, because as a woman myself in this world, it is really important to talk about how things are marketed towards us, because high performing women end up gravitating towards these modalities because they're marketed as feminine, graceful, and safe. Yogas and Pilates feel more welcoming than traditional gyms. They fit that wellness aesthetic, that green juice, the matching sets, the calm lighting, or like the aesthetic lighting. They're enjoyable and stress relieving, and they're group settings and they're led by someone. So normally high achievers at the end of the day, they're like, I just want to be told what to do. I don't want to think about another thing that I'm doing. And so it can feel like you're kind of working against it because all these people that have the physique that you want are people that are doing these things. And so you think, I just need to do these things and I'm going to get that physique. But what we often see with clients when they come to us, if they are doing these things, is that they're still not happy in their body. And again, that's where we want to bridge the gap here of how we can still implement those things, still enjoy those, but recognize what they don't fulfill within our total movement and training plan.
Because this isn't just about how you look, it's about how your body functions as you continue to age. Bone density peaks around age 30 and declines after that. I'll say that again because it hurt my soul when I read it the first time as well. Bone density peaks around 30 and declines after that, especially during menopause. Muscle mass follows a similar trajectory. Less muscle means lower metabolism, more fatigue, less stability, and a greater risk of injury. Womp, womp, womp. No one wants that. And this is why, a big part of why high-performing women are most vulnerable, because they are in a chronically high stress state, which is going to elevate cortisol. That elevated cortisol is going to lead to a greater degree of muscle breakdown and bone loss. They may be under-eating protein while over-exercising. They may be having poor sleep alongside of it. And then they have a mentality that's constantly saying, I'll start when things calm down. And the truth that we all know, you are listening to this and you're saying it in your head right now, things rarely ever calm down. So waiting only makes it harder later on.
And this is also on top of just the fact that, again, women are going through menopause. Like men aren't having that same experience of all of those changes within their hormones. That is going to make this even harder. And I do want to emphasize with this, with me saying that it makes it harder, it does not mean impossible. We work with many women who come to us just saying that their doctors say, now that you've been through menopause, this is just how you are going to look. This is how you are going to be, where that is not the case whatsoever. But we want to work with that instead of just falling into these like very feminine marketed types of movement. And then as you age and even when you're younger, you're still not looking the way you want. Because that's also something that I think is worth mentioning is oftentimes the women that you see with these bodies that you really like appreciate and you want to look like them, they didn't get it from just doing yoga and Pilates. Now, of course, there's outliers. There's people that just have great genetics, all of that jazz. We're not here to argue that. We're here to talk about the rule, not the exception to the rule, because most of you fit into the rule. And so with that being said, a lot of the women I even personally know that do Pilates and yoga and look incredible, they also are weight training and they're able to do both of them. They don't have to choose, I only do Pilates or I only do weight training. You can do those together, but I think it's, again, important to see how things are marketed, how you're looking at the people doing these things and how you're comparing yourself, and also how you're deciding to make movement fit into your life overall. Because I don't know about you, yes, I do want to enjoy things, but I also want to make it work for me. I want to look a certain way. I want to perform a certain way. And so, yes, there's an enjoyment side of it, but there's also like it needs to work. Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
it's
good.
Terrible for you.
You should lift heavy.
High reps,
carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are
life.
bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great
You
for your
should
knees.
squat ass to
Knees over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my macros.
It's for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where Physique Development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need.
Now let's have a conversation on what you're really here for, what really stinking works, because we want to understand what truly drives muscle preservation and muscle growth. Because muscle protein synthesis has really three main factors that are going to allow for that muscle growth to occur. The first one is going to be mechanical tension. And mechanical tension is you utilizing a weight that is very challenging, that creates resistance to a given muscle group that you're able to have at a very close proximity to failure. Think that you maybe only be able to do 2, maybe 3 repetitions if you were to go to absolute failure when you're picking up that weight, giving that specific exercise. The second thing is going to be progressive overload. And this is going to be you continuing to either add repetitions or being able to increase the weight that you're utilizing or that closer proximity to failure that we just talked about. And then the third thing is doing both of those things consistently over time, doing so week after week, month after month, year after year. And as we've talked about, walking, yoga, or Pilates don't do any of those 3 things meaningfully. And resistance training absolutely does. It tells your body that the muscle is needed and we have to keep it around, and it's not something that we can waste, as the body is always going to be seeking ways to create energy and utilize it as efficiently as possible. And if that means at the expense of your muscle tissue, unfortunately, so be it.
And one thing I want to note here when we talk about muscle is if you're like, oh, I don't want to get bulky or I'm not trying to grow these huge muscles. First, that doesn't happen by accident. You got to be really consistent year after year to like get too bulky. Trust me, I've been trying. But the other thing with that, when we talk about muscle building, it again is also talking about that longevity overall. Not only have we talked about just when you get to a certain age that your bone density and your muscle density starts to like lower overall and it's easier to lose that, but it's just something that muscle is going to allow you to burn more calories. So if you've ever seen a girl and you're like, how does she eat that much? She likely has some good muscle on her. She either has good muscle or good genetics on her. It's also going to be something that like allows you to be mobile as you age. So what we see with a lot of older individuals when they can't play with their grandchildren, they can't be that mobile side is because they're losing muscle and their body is breaking down on them. So it's not just like, oh, I want huge muscles. Like if you do want that, that's freaking great. And I love that for you. But it's literally like what muscle can do for you, not just even how it looks. But it also, if you are chasing that toned look, I hate to break it to you, that includes muscle. Like to get that toned look, that just means that you are having muscle and losing fat mass and being able to show off that muscle to look toned.
If I could leave you with one thing today, resistance training is the single most effective tool for building and maintaining both muscle and bone. It's the closest thing to a fitness multi-tool that exists. And truly, here's the best part, is that you don't have to lift crazy heavy to get the results. You just have to train hard enough, meaning close to failure, and progress consistently, as we said earlier, over time. And how we can go about that on a week-to-week basis and how it could look for you. And I want to make this abundantly clear that this is how it could look. It can look a lot of different ways depending on your schedule, your lifestyle, and how you want to approach this. But here's one example that you could train 3 to 4 days per week. The sessions could be a duration of 30 to 75 minutes, focusing on being able to increase the weight week after week, or maybe doing 1 extra rep than what you did the week prior and utilize progressive overload, and being able to remain consistent for years, not just during the weeks of the month that it was a little bit easier and the kids were not as crazy and we didn't have X, Y, and Z thing going on. No, we want to still be able to be consistent. It may look a little bit different during those crazy months as we are during the months that it's a little bit easier. Utilizing free weights, machines, bands, it really does not matter. The key is the intensity and the progression, which I find to be very liberating overall. You don't need to lift that super heavy weight every single time that you're in there that feels bone crushing. I understand that. And maybe that super heavy weight feels intimidating to you, but you really, really do need to train hard, progress that over time, and stay tremendously consistent. Now, here at Physique Development, we have a unique and very specific periodization method that we have found to be extremely successful for the more than 3,000 lives that we've transformed and how we navigate through their training. We have really 4 separate phases that we work through that allow for them to function their body at the highest level while being able to do all the things with playing with their kids, doing things athletically that they desire to do, feel great when they go into the office, truly be at their best at every stage of their day. So the first phase is called a neurological phase. And what we focus on during this neurological phase is being able to master the exercise movements, being able to get into an exercise, feel the target muscle groups, and be able to work through that movement pattern very efficiently. We have the focus on being very efficient within how the nervous system is being utilized. As a high-performing human or a high-performing woman, you're in a spot where your nervous system is being challenged to the highest degree every day. And if we can improve its efficiency through your resistance training, you're going to be better in all facets of your life. Huge win. And with that movement mastery, we have the injury prevention that goes alongside of it. The second phase that we focus on is going to be the metabolic phase. And this is a great one because we focus on your overall work capacity. As a high performer, you're in a spot where you want to try and get in as much work as possible that you're capable of achieving. This training phase improves that capability. It also improves your metabolic conditioning, your ability to use the carbohydrates that you're consuming, use the resources that you have, and also be able to be more resilient to the stress that's placed on your body. Another huge factor as a high performer that you need. You need to be very resilient to the stress that's applied to your body. You need to be able to have a high work capacity, and you certainly need to be very efficient with how your nervous system is being utilized. And those 2 phases alone are able to accomplish that to the upteenth degree. We have our third phase that is a hypertrophy phase, and this is where we put everything together that we utilize within the neurological and the metabolic work to build as much muscle as possible. Now, not for you to get bulky, but for you to have really strong and dense muscles that you're able to utilize throughout all aspects of your day. We go into the fourth phase, and this is the systemic phase. And this is where we focus on more recovery, being able to have greater metabolic conditioning. This adds into that metabolic phase where we get even greater benefits. But this is a type of stimulus that allows for us to train more in a full body setting and get a lot of bang for our buck in the work that we're doing. This system is focused solely on longevity in your training, helping you get stronger, feel better, look better, and stay consistent for decades, not just for a season of life.
And if you're wondering why, again, periodization matters, like it's not about results just this month. It's about being able to train effectively for the next 30 to 40 years. And periodization prevents injury, manages fatigue, creates sustainable progress. And this is the difference between someone who lifts for a few months and burns out versus someone who's still getting stronger at 65 years old.
If you're listening to this and realizing that your current routine might be keeping you busy, but not necessarily getting better, that is your sign to shift. Yoga, Pilates, and walking are all amazing for your health and well-being. But if your goals include preserving muscle, protecting your bones, and keeping your metabolism strong, resistance training has to be a part of the plan. You don't need to give up the things you love. You just need to add the things your body truly needs.
The goal isn't to work harder, it's to work smarter and with the right stimulus, because the effort you're already giving deserves a better return. If you have any questions, you can always shoot us a message. We have links down below, but otherwise, we hope you have a great rest of your day and we'll catch you in the next one.